meeting. Councilmember Rao. Councilmember Rao. Councilmember Gumbs.
Present.
Councilmember Willis.
Present.
Councilmember Gilliard.
Here.
Councilmember Reeves. Councilmember Reeves. Councilmember Khalid. Councilmember Khalid. Councilmember Baker. Councilmember Baker is here.
This is Reeves. I'm counting for. I'm just now unmuted.
Okay, Councilmember Reeves is here. Also present is Mayor Edwards, the city manager, Mr. Donald, and city attorney, Ms. Walker. You have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, before you get started, I want to, and I hope that I'm doing it at the right time. I want to move a couple of items.
We haven't got there yet.
No, you haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Is our Pastor Henry on? Madam Clerk?
I believe so. Pastor Henry? He was on.
Councilman Reed? Councilman Reed? Councilmember Reeves, are you there?
Mayor, if someone is putting in that the host is not allowing unmute us, can the host stop doing that, please?
I'm in now.
Mayor,
I'm unmuted.
Mayor, can you hear me?
Oh, I hear him now. Okay, I don't need you now, Mr. Councilman Reeves. Thank you so much. Mr. Chaplain?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, Councilwoman Willis. It was not allowing me to unmute. Let us pray. Dear gracious God, we are so thankful as a city for our elected officials, our city manager, all our department heads, for all that the world is going through. Oh God, you are drawing us closer together. We thank you for your covering. We thank you for your safety. We thank you for your wisdom and knowledge. Oh God, as our leadership continues to look ahead, the ability to look ahead is called vision, which is what you have given them. So continue to guide them, continue to lead them as we follow them. We thank you for all things in Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge your allegiance.
I'm sorry. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chaplain. Madam Clerk?
Now?
No, ma'am. Madam Clerk? Madam Clerk?
Next item on the agenda is adoption of council agenda. Councilmember Gilliard, what do you have?
Oh, I move that we amend the agenda to add the economic incentive ordinance for first read, and to move the committee disbandment ordinance up to the top of the agenda items and June 10th.
Okay, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
Do we have an agenda item for the incentive program?
No, I do not.
And it's my understanding that we don't have it because the attorney has not released it. Is that right?
She has not sent, no one has sent me an agenda item.
So by which it has not passed our legislative process. So there's no way I can add that to the agenda at this time.
Is the attorney here? Is Attorney Walker here?
Madam Clerk,
she's here.
Yeah, hi. It wasn't allowing me to speak, but it's just been unmuted. But yeah, this was actually circulated before the agenda was noticed. And it's my understanding that the FIS is completed. And I also circulated another copy this morning.
Yeah. Madam Clerk, does Mr. Pascal, does he have that document?
Mr. Pascal, have you received the FIS?
Give me 1 second.
And Councilwoman Rao is present and could not unmute previously.
Yeah, I got you down.
Okay.
While he's doing that, the request to bring up the conversation on the committees, does anybody have any objection to that? Hello?
No objections.
Okay.
So she wants item 14 and 19 moved to what part of the agenda, Councilmember Gilliard?
As quickly as possible, wherever possible, because I'm gonna have to leave. And I want to make sure that, I'm around for those. So as quickly as possible, I can't jump before the previous agenda item. So at the top of number 13, I guess.
Okay, at the beginning of agenda items.
Right, exactly.
You're saying, Madam Clerk, you're saying item 14 and 19, did you say?
Yes, sir. She wants the Juneteenth holiday and the disbanding of the committees.
Gotcha.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Point of order. I was trying to unmute myself to speak. Can you please tell the host to stop putting us on automatic? We're not children. We know when we can speak.
Okay, we heard that. And Madam Clerk, would you take care of that, please?
It's been taken care of. I don't know what the problem is.
Okay. As well as let us know if it happens again. Mr. Pascal, have you found anything?
Renato?
Yes, sir, Mayor. I'm actually looking for it. It's running a little slow. I do remember that item coming through. However, it was sent over, so I'm actually trying to get the file to make sure that the dates have gone through.
In the process,
We proceed.
Go ahead. I didn't acknowledge you, but go ahead.
Okay, Mayor, the city attorney sent the economic development incentive over just a few minutes ago at 10:04. So I have the resolution, but I don't have a FIS for it as of yet.
Well, we can hold off until we find what the legislative process is and if we've got it done.
Okay.
Let's move, while Mr. Pascal is looking for that. Let's go to the next item.
Actually, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm in the queue. I don't know if I'm using the queue.
Let's stop right here, man. Mr. Khalid, you wanted to say something? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. The June.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Our clerk.
I think we've made it. We've tried to make it.
Hold up. No one is talking over Mr.
But we want
Tony,
to do everything we can to be successful. Ms. Martin was talking about chins and.
Tony, okay, he's got it.
Mr. Khalid, go right ahead.
Madam Clerk, I think you were asking what items they wanted to be moved to, and we didn't get a second for the motion. If it's all right with Councilwoman Gilliard, I would request that item number 14 become item number 6.
She wants to move item 14 and 19.
Right. I don't know if, so I would ask the items number 14 and 19 become number 6. and number 7. And if there is something that precludes item number 19.
Be clear that we're supportive. That's his.
Mr. Khalid, I think that's what she said in her request.
Okay, I just didn't know if you had those numbers, Madam Clerk. So yes, I second that.
Yeah. We asked for
consensus. Excuse me. We're talking about two different things, because I asked at the top of the agenda, and Mr. Khalid is saying move them up to number 7 and number 8.
Number 6 and 7.
Right after number 6. That's what he's saying.
Let me clarify something. What do you mean when you say top of the agenda? Because the top of the agenda is on. So what do you mean when you say top of the agenda? He's saying once we get to that point of discussion or concerning those items, that they come 1 and 2. That's what he's saying.
So just to be clear for Councilwoman Gilliard, item 6 and 7 would make them the first item after public comment.
Right.
Okay, I can live with that.
Okay, that's what he's saying. Let's move on.
Okay.
Madam Clerk.
Okay, the motion is to move items 14 and 19 to right after the public comments.
Okay.
Motion by Councilman Gilliard, second by Councilmember Khalid.
But this is part of the overall adoption of
the agenda, yes.
Any other changes in the agenda? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion. I guess that motion.
It's been motioned and seconded. Councilmember Rao?
Okay, what are you calling Rao for?
The vote?
Okay, go ahead. I hadn't called for, but you can go right ahead.
Yes.
Councilmember Gums?
Yes.
Willis? Councilmember Willis?
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard?
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves? Councilmember Reeves? Councilmember Khalid?
Wait, I think you just got Reeves.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, wait.
I'm also yes.
Councilmember Baker?
That was a yes, I think.
Yes, the motion passes. Motion passes.
Okay, next item, please.
Council approval of city council meeting minutes, work session and regular May 26th.
I'll entertain a motion. I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Khalid?
Aye.
Reeves?
Mr. Reeves, is something wrong with your equipment?
Councilmember Reeves?
Aye.
Councilmember Gilliard?
Yes.
Willis? Councilmember Willis?
I could not unmute, Mayor. It happened again. I don't know what's going on. Issues.
Councilmember Gums?
I'm gonna have Neymar call you. Go ahead.
Councilmember Gums? Councilmember Rao?
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Approval of special call meeting minutes.
Councilman Willis. Councilwoman Willis, I'm having Mr. Neymar call you now. Okay?
Mayor, everyone that's not speaking except for council, can you please mute your phone because we're getting feedback?
Yes, we are.
Approval of special call meeting minutes June 1st and 2nd.
I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve special call minutes for June 1st and 2nd.
Second.
Been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Rao,
Yes.
Gums, Willis,
Mm.
Reed,
You forgot me.
Aye.
Gilliard,
Yes.
Khalid,
I abstain.
Baker.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Madam Clerk, can you please record both of my yeses because I am on mute and I was on mute and I can't unmute myself.
Okay.
The same here with Councilmember Willis. Mayor, it's saying that the host is putting us on mute.
We have taken everybody that off of mute, so I don't know what the problem is going.
Let me do this. Don.
What you say, Dan?
Let me have it checked on our end, Miss Willis. I need him to check everything.
Sir, you need to mute yourself, please.
Mr. Mayor.
We have, excuse me a minute, but do we have Miss Councilwoman Willis and Councilwoman Gums? They're having the technical difficulties, am I correct?
Well, it's not technical difficulties on my end. It just every time I try to unmute myself to vote, or it says that the host has me on mute.
Okay, so once again, I'm having Mr. Neymar come in and look at our end, Ms. Willis.
Just, Mr. Mayor, just a point of information.
All right.
Mr. Mayor.
All right, go right ahead, sir.
I just wanted to let Mr. Strickland, whoever's working on it, know, because I've been on a lot of Zoom calls, there is a preset in the preferences that automatically mutes people. So you may actually have to go into your advanced settings and your preferences and just unselect that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Khalid, for that information. Madam Clerk, you think we can get this next vote done?
I'm going to try. Approval of work session meeting minutes, June 10th.
I make a motion to approve the city council work session minutes from June 10th.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, Madam Clerk?
Rao,
Yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Willis,
Yes.
Gilliard,
Yes.
Reeves,
Aye.
Khalid,
I abstain again.
Baker.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Next item is the public hearing. Council public hearing and approval of alcohol license for Neighborhood Food Mart located at 2749 Flat Shoals Road.
Anybody in the police department?
Yes, Mayor. How's everyone doing today? Okay, so the applicant from 2749 Flat Shoals has met all the requirements to receive an alcohol permit, and we present it to the body for consideration.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Khalid, you're in.
I am going to make a motion to deny this permit.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and second. Any discussion, further discussion? What is your rationale for denying this?
Yes. So first, as the author or co-author with our community development regulatory affairs director Shayla Reed of our zoning moratorium, it was my legislative intent, if it is not the de facto result of the legislation, it was my legislative intent to prevent these kinds of permits. I understand the rationale and that we've been given in our agenda packet was that, I'm sorry, let me just turn my camera on. It looks weird, y'all can't see me. It was the rationale of in the documents that we received that the moratorium covers new zonings but does not cover permits. And that wasn't my intent. We already have a surfeit of liquor stores and places selling liquor on Old National. This one is about 2 blocks from Old National at the entrance to a subdivision. And so I just think I'm not even sure how these ended up on here. I think that we need to maybe talk about the spirit of the moratorium, if the de facto language of the moratorium doesn't state that.
Okay, let me ask a question, Chief. Is this a new application for a new business?
I don't think it's a new one. I have a message here. Major Johnson, are you on? Can you unmute yourself?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
These are new applications for alcohol licensing, not permits. And these applications was sent for review in regards to the moratorium to the city attorney for review before we accepted their applications. And we were advised that the moratorium did not apply to these applications for alcohol licenses.
Okay, thank you. Madam Attorney?
Yes, Mayor.
Would you wade through the issues of words like de facto and intent and things of that nature and opine on this license review?
Yeah, so legislative intent, just for clarification, is you shouldn't base the decision off of legislative intent, but
we understand what the intent is. That's the way the presentation from Mr. Khalid was about intent and de facto legislation. I'm asking you is, based on this license application, can we deny it based on the issue of intent?
Well, so I wouldn't recommend denying based on legislative intent, but I do know that Councilman Khalid spoke about other issues that were apart from intent, like the distancing and other issues. Those would be a valid basis, but my recommendation would be not to solely deny on the basis of legislative intent.
Okay, Mr. Khalid. Mr. Khalid.
So I did.
I have a question for you, Mr. Khalid.
Yes,
give
sir.
me your ground. Give me your ground for denial other than intent.
This store is at the entrance to a subdivision. I don't know any of my residents in District 6 that want to see liquor stores or stores selling liquor at the entrance to their subdivisions.
Okay.
I have received no support for this from any of my constituents.
All right. Okay. Any further discussion? Is there a motion on the floor, Madam Clerk? There is, I think.
Yes, Councilmember Khalid motioned and it was seconded by Gilliard and Gums. But if I may, we did not receive any public comments requests on this issue either.
Okay, good. Okay, Mr. Reed.
And if I may,
who am I speaking to?
Major Johnson.
This Major Johnson.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify that the applicants have passed all the legal distance requirements in order to have an alcohol license.
Okay, Mr. Reeves, I'm gonna allow you to say something, then we're gonna vote. Mr. Reeves.
Okay, yes. I just had to get unmuted. For clarity, just for clarity, is this alcohol license to sell beer and wine, or just alcohol license to sell actual liquor and spirits?
Major?
Just a beer and wine. It's a convenience store.
Just the beer and wine at a convenience store. And it meets all of the criteria as I saw in the applicant of all the distance requirements.
That is correct.
And are you recommending that this go forward this license go forward?
There is no legal reason that we have found in order to deny the application.
Okay, thank you.
I said that you were going to be the last call, Miss. I don't know why, Miss Willis, you're in the queue, but we're ready to vote. Madam Clerk, let's vote.
Councilmember Rao, the motion is to deny.
Nay.
Councilmember Gumbs,
Yes.
Willis,
Yes.
Gilliard,
Yes.
Reeves,
Hey,
Khalid,
Yes.
Baker.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Well, that passes. Next
Yes.
item.
The next item is council public hearing and approval of alcohol license for Sitco Food Mart located at 5100 Cascade Palmetto Highway.
I have
Excuse me.
something to say.
Excuse me. Let me have the police say something first. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to go ahead and let Major Johnson present on that one as well.
Okay.
So this alcohol application has met all the legal requirements to obtain an alcohol license. And based on that, the recommendation was for approval.
Okay. Ms. Gilliard, let me get a motion. I'll entertain a motion and get to discussion. Anyone making a motion?
I'm making a motion to hold it.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Been properly moved and second to hold this item discussion. Ms. Gilliard.
Yes. A few things come to mind. It would really be great if the council could receive reports of items that are coming up. For instance, a gas station at that corner is across the street from another gas station. 2 miles down the street at Ridge and Cascade Palmetto is another gas station. I want to make sure that that what happened to Old National doesn't happen in District 4 with the number of gas stations. And I know that we don't have that many in the city. That's the first issue. The second issue is I want to discuss it with the community because I just recently and I wouldn't have known it if a constituent who lives not too far had not told me that there was a sign that a gas station was coming there. And then number 3, that's on the corner of the Chat Hills Historic project that we are planning right now. And I just think that it would have been a better use. This is all the way down the road of probably permitting and everything. So there's a lot that the community needs to discuss as it relates to this.
Let me just make
right across the street from another gas station. So that's what I would like to do. I would like to hold it.
Ms. Willis?
Yes, I'm just kind of confused on how these gas stations are coming through because I thought we addressed this with the moratorium and a zoning ordinance with distance requirements. I know we haven't approved the zoning ordinance, but we put a moratorium in place. And I just also want to say that I am not anti-gas stations, but I do respect the fact that not any of us want gas stations on every corner in our district. And, I'm respectfully deferring to the district representatives who govern the area as to what they want in their districts. And because they should be in touch with their community and they should know what, their community members want to support and what type of economic development they want in their community. So that's where I am. And that's what I was going to say in the previous vote as well.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Willis. Mr. Khalid?
Well, first of all, thank you, Councilwoman Willis, for your support. This is I'm glad that we didn't rush through our zoning rewrite. Clearly, there's some loopholes that we need to re-examine and take a little bit more time to do. I'm not in the case of the person that wanted to sell liquor in my case, that applicant lives in Duluth, and in Duluth they don't do this at the entrance to their subdivisions. So whatever standards they have in Duluth, I would like to see us have whatever is keeping Duluth from having this. And these other places where these people live, where they live, they can't do this in their neighborhoods. I just want to make sure that when we get to our zoning rewrite, that we have the same kind of teeth in our zoning documents. And I just wanted to say that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Khalid. The applicant would like to speak. Go ahead. Applicant.
Good morning, everyone. Can all of you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for presenting me this opportunity to speak. We applied this license, and before I even start, I mean, this gas station has been on this property for a long time. We just opened up, and I just want to say that I want to be part of the community and be an asset to the community, and not a liability or a nuisance. And we take every step to be safe and precautious about, distancing and make sure everything goes right. I'm sorry, my name is Pushpinder Johar is my full name. So we've been waiting on this license for a long time, and we did everything that was required as per norms. I do have a lot of customers coming in right from day one asking me when you're going to start beer and wine. And this is just beer and wine, no hard liquor or spirits. So we do have a lot of customers who are interested in, being our customers for beer and wine from around, and the gas station right across the street is already selling beer and wine. Now, we did pass all the requirements. I would just request the committee to please consider this application and approve it, because I definitely want to be a part of the community and give it back to the community as much as possible from the business point of view and the service point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you restate the motion that's on the floor, please?
The motion on the floor made by Councilmember Gilliard, seconded by Councilmember Rao, was to hold the application.
Let's vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Baker. Councilmember Baker. Councilmember Khalid.
Aye.
Councilmember Reeves.
Aye.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilliard.
Aye.
Councilmember Willis.
Aye.
Councilmember Gumbs.
Aye.
Councilmember Rao.
Aye.
The motion approved that the application will be held.
Thank you so much. Next item.
Thank you.
Next item is public comments. And I emailed them this morning. There are 19 public comments. The first one is from Elizabeth Bartos. She lives at 6750 Short Road in Fairburn. She's in District 4. I am requesting that the Finance Committee not be dissolved. Citizens need an objective opinion about their finances, more than just an annual audit, which is important, but does not obtain the information that the committee can and has obtained. Number two, is from Jewel Johnson, 4660 Orkney Lane. She's in District 1. I'm requesting that we keep the Finance Committee, for it helped keep the clarity of the city finances and has good numbers of citizens on this board. Plus, there is no cost for having the board. Comment 3 from Sharon Jones, 7967 Apple Mist Drive. She's in District 4. I would like to support Juneteenth becoming a holiday in the city of South Fulton. I also like a limit on the liquor licenses in our city. We have enough businesses that sell alcohol. The only exception would be if quality restaurants open in the area, but no to any new package stores. Comment number 4 from Harry King, 4035 Lindy Lane, District 3. Do not eliminate, dissolve the Finance Committee. Comment number 5, Charmaine Jackson, 5137 Amerland Square, District 4. I am requesting that you do not dissolve the Financial Committee. Citizens need an objective opinion about their finances other than an annual audit. That is important, but will not and is not expected to obtain the information that the committee can obtain. Comment number 6 from Terry and Stephanie Muckle, 5146 Amberland Square, District 4. Our comment is in support of not dissolving the City of South Fulton's Financial Committee. Comment number 7, Anna Williams, 5712 Gray Wind Trail. She did not list her district. Financial Committee gives a voice as to where our tax dollars are spent in the community. I think it plays a vital role in our community growth and awareness. My vote is to not dissolve the Financial Committee. Comment number 8, Gail Lesser, 5070 Derrick Road, District 4. As a veteran of the campaign for the new city, I would like to express my support for the Finance Committee. My greatest hope for our city was that it not be corrupt, and to help guarantee that we will need all independent and watchful eyes on deck. Discontinuing or lack of support of the committee in itself casts a shadow on the council. The committee will not incur any additional financial support, and there seems to be no objective reason not to provide it with your wholehearted support. Comment number 9, Juliet Rankins, 3925 Grassy Trace, District 4. Gang of 4, please do not destroy the Finance Committee. Comment number 10, from Gina Lewis, 542 Jade Tree Lane, District 4. Vote no to dissolving the Finance Committee. The Finance Community and Business and Community Council should be funded. We need objective and continuous monitoring to the finances and the impacts on residents, not just an annual audit. We need proactive leadership and diligence. With better financial information, we are equipped to make better, agile decisions. Comment number 11, Raphael Amons, 4585 Heatherwood Drive, District 1. The liberties of a people never were, nor ever will be, secure when the transactions of their rulers may be concealed from them. A quote by Patrick Henry. Comment number 12, Felicia Rondon, 5174 Amberland Circle. No district indicated. Please do not eliminate the Finance Committee. Comment number 13, Ronnie Few, 247 Lockswood Lane, District 2. I have been in the city government for over 30 years. Government has always been at its very best when citizens are involved with the financial decisions of the city. When many of us supported forming the city, we felt that this would be an opportunity for accountability, transparency, and citizen participation. Most accounting professionals recommend a Finance Committee or board within the city. Most mayors and council members would agree that this is responsible leadership. Why would anyone want to vote against it? Keeping the Finance Committee is a step towards saying to the citizens that you deserve to be a governing body that believes in citizen participation and transparency. Comment number 14. Camille Wickerson, 5186 Amberlin Square. No district indicated, requesting that the committee not be dissolved. Comment number 15. So Jose Bright, 4224 Caveat Court, District 4. The council must not vote to dissolve the Finance Committee. It's a transparent and accountability tool. It's not increasing costs as the committee members volunteer their time and talent. It's a body that has 8 City of South Fulton residents. To dissolve this committee indicates there is something to hide and it does not hold well for the voters. Comment 16, Glenda Collins, 3740 Morning Creek Drive, District 5. Why would any company or organization vote to eliminate a finance committee? This is a bad idea because you are dealing with the funds of the citizens and taxpayers of the city of South Fulton. And anytime you are responsible for the funds of others, there should be a check and balance. The Finance Committee should not be removed because once mismanagement occurs, the genie cannot be put back in the box and shortages affect the citizens and taxpayers. Comment 17, Alice Williamson, Post Office Box 1147, District 4. I am concerned about the dismantling of the newly created Finance Committee. As a person with a fiduciary background, I was encouraged by the creation of such a committee to help provide oversight and guidance and accountability to the city's process. It is not clear what are the motives and reasons to dissolve a committee that has not had the opportunity to function to determine the effectiveness. The creation of additional or other related committees can be an umbrella under the Finance Committee. The citizens of this community deserve transparency and accountability, which seems to be the intent of the Finance Committee. Comment 18, Michael Venable, Old National East, District 6. Finance, I would not encourage not eliminating the Finance Committee, as financial concerns dominate council decisions, discussions, and actions. It is important that an atmosphere of transparency is supported by the city. Though the committee has not yet fulfilled its basic intent, I believe people and time distractions do not yet warrant disbanding the group. Also, the $250,000 price tag on the Juneteenth holiday should raise concerns. Though I feel the importance of the significance of the proposed holiday meeting, the bedrock of balance should not be destroyed. Replacing the Election Day holiday with the Juneteenth holiday is a discussion that should be explored with a financial standpoint. The last comment, number 19, from Alvin Reynolds, 585 Kings Place, District 7. I believe that doing away with probably one of the most important committees in local government when it comes to transparency, finance is at the top of the list and by no means should be dissolved, especially when it is operating without a budget. Cannot grasp why this would even be considered. That ends the public comments.
Okay, we thank everybody for those comments. Madam Clerk.
Next item on the agenda, which was moved, was item number 14, council approval of amending city holiday.
Excuse me, someone.
Mayor, you forgot I asked you for a 2-minute point of privilege after public comments.
Okay, that's fine. You didn't get into the queue, so I forgot about you, but go right ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I currently govern about 17,000 residents in District 3, and I received one comment. There was communications directly to HOAs and communities in the district that I govern without my knowledge or input concerning dissolving committees. The communication encouraged residents to send in public comments to the city council to discourage the city council from moving forward with legislation to dissolve committees. This information outlined in the communication was misinformed information and it lacked transparency. I do plan to follow up with you all with the finance videos and a transparent reasoning. Majority of this council decided to dissolve the 5 committees for the time being. I reiterate, time being. I encourage all HOAs and communities that I govern to follow me on Facebook, subscribe to my newsletter, and reach out directly to me with your concerns and questions. My website is South Fulton D3. Again, South Fulton D3. As colleagues in this time of 2 pandemics, we should strive to send the message that the city officials are working in a unified way for people over politics. Residents are free to reach out to communicate with any of us on the city council. However, what shouldn't happen is for colleagues to send misinformed information directly to communities that they do not govern to misguide constituents or shed a negative light on the person that was elected to govern that area to further their agenda. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak, Mayor.
Okay, thank you so much. Madam Clerk, let's move on.
The next item, item number 14, council approval of amending city's holiday schedule to include recognizing June 10th as a city holiday. Council members Khalid, Baker, Guns, and Gilliard.
Is there a motion?
Yes, I'm in the queue, actually. I do have a motion. I need to speak before I make a motion. I'm not gonna make a motion without speaking.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Sorry.
Well, there is a motion. You were not recognized. Go ahead, Mr. Baker, we'll come back at you.
Oh, I apologize.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So first of all, I would like to thank everyone who spoke in favor of this resolution of public comment. And the people that are watching this historic vote on the live stream. There in the resolution, those who have read the resolution are familiar with the fact that the state of Georgia currently celebrates 2 Confederate holidays, 2 holidays for the Confederacy, which is an institution that fought a war to keep 3.5 million African Americans in slavery. Those 2 holidays that are on the calendar are Robert E. Lee, or Confederate Heroes Day, on January 19th, and Confederate Memorial Day on the 4th Monday in April. All state offices are closed those days, including the DMV. We are the Blackest city in America. We should own this holiday. There are other cities right now that are taking down Confederate monuments, but here on the South Side, we are still driving on streets named after men who fought to keep our ancestors as slaves. Stonewall Tell, Old National, Old Dixie, Terra Boulevard, Robert E. Lee Drive. With all this going on in our country right now, Black people deserve to have places in America where being Black is not an obstacle to overcome, where we are actually celebrated. I just want to celebrate us being Black. When I first introduced this resolution over a year ago, I asked that we spend 1/5 of 1% of our $100 million budget on this celebration. Our budget has changed since then. That translates to about $250,000. Our budget has definitely changed since then. And I have been talking with my colleagues, including Councilwoman Carmelita Gumbs from District 2, who asked to co-sponsor this. We spoke for about an hour and a half yesterday, and we agreed to a new budget of $150,000. So we're reducing it by $100,000. We also agreed to put some things in place to make this more fiscally responsible. We are requesting that the $150,000 be replaced by corporate sponsors and partners as the city can identify them, so that the goal is for this to be a revenue neutral holiday. We're asking for, so the three additions are one, the three amendments are one, change the number from 250,000 to 150,000. Number two, asking or instructing our city staff to seek out corporate sponsors and partners that can replace that $150,000 and return that money to the general fund. And number three, to instruct our communications department to promote this event and the rationale behind this event throughout our city. And so my motion is to approve with those amendments.
Is there a second?
Second.
Properly moved and second. In discussion, Mr. Reed.
Okay, yes, thank you. And thank you also to Councilman Khalid for introducing this, and Attorney Walker. I don't know if it's today, but if you can add me as a sponsor to this event, that'll be awesome as well. To the legislation, and thank you for reducing that cost, because that was a key. And then adding in the corporate sponsorships, you kind of summarized and answered a lot of my questions, because I am in support of this. But also, too, this past weekend, I just want to thank our officers for coming in on their day off, and the other ones putting in for overtime. I asked the police chief to get that bill together, because our officers are not getting paid to do this event, but they was coming in on their time and their day off on Father's Day. Police chief to bring this bill, and I'm asking all three of us if we'll split that bill a third out of our own budget, so it does not cost things to the city or put any burden to the city, but also too that to ensure that the officers get paid on the cycle that this falls in, and that's why I asked them to do that today.
Mr. Reeves.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Reeves, we hear what you're saying is not being germane to the point of the holiday. So if you will hold your thoughts, we'll get to it. Okay.
All right, I hold my thoughts. Sure.
All right, go ahead. All right, is anyone else? There's Mrs. Willis is in.
I'm in. Raul is in as well.
I see you, Miss Raul, but Miss Willis is in before you. Go ahead.
So my question is, first of all, I do support Juneteenth, and I do understand the significance and importance of it. My concern is the 100 and the 100. Is that the fiscal? The FIS on this is now $150,000 versus $250,000. Did I understand that correct? I'm asking. I guess that will go to the finance director.
Mr. Malazi.
Yes, the way I understand it from Councilman Khalid, he says it's moving from 250 to 150.
Okay, Mr. Malaza, what is that $150,000 for?
It's not in the budget.
I mean, because you didn't. I mean, we got the FIS and it said $250,000, but it doesn't outline a detail why the FIS is $250,000. It didn't have any detail. Do you understand? Understand why is this not revenue neutral? What's costing the city $150,000?
So what Councilman Khalid is bringing up today, as you have heard from him, that he discussed with Councilman Gams yesterday. So I'm hearing it for the first time now. But what he asked was to have it included in the annual budget. So it will be up to the council to allocate that 250.
Okay, that was not my question. My question is, what is costing the city $150,000? Why is there $150,000 to this legislation?
So that question should go to Councilman Khalid, because he mentioned in his fees request that money will be spent in the Parks and Recreation. So it will be the programs that they will have in Parks and Recreation. I don't have details of those programs that will have that much money.
Excuse me, can I time in for a minute, Miss Willis?
Yes.
Mr. Malazi, I'm very upset that you make that statement to go back to Mr. Khalid, because as a finance director, if someone submits a budget to you, we work on line item budgets. You should be able to tell us what those items are going for. And I think that's a reasonable question that should have been asked. And I think it adheres to the fact that we need to move slow on our conversation with this. I just wanted to add that
I can't.
Mrs. Gilliard, you're cutting in on the Zoom. So I just want to make that point. Ms. Willis, go right ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make an amendment to this resolution and ask the council to vote on it. And my amendment is that we approve this holiday without the $150,000 FIS. If we need to come back later and add that once we get a full understanding of what that $150,000 is for, I'm amenable to that. I'm for the holiday, but my amendment I'm asking that we vote on approving the holiday without the $150,000.
Madam Clerk, did we get properly moved and second on the original vote?
Yes, you did.
Madam Attorney?
Yes, Mayor. So procedurally,
let me ask the question first.
okay.
Would you opine to what she's trying to do, or you think that it should be made in a substitute motion?
Yes, that's correct, Mayor. The maker of the initial motion can change his motion. If he's not agreeable to that, then you would need to either vote his motion up or down, and then Councilwoman Willis could make the amended motion as she stated if his motion fails.
So my question, Mayor, I'm going back to you, the chair. Are you saying that at this time I can't make a substitute motion?
No, ma'am. What she's saying is that yours was a modification to his motion,
Okay.
and we're saying that. And I would ask Councilman Member Khalid.
Yes.
Would you accept that modification? Yes or no?
The answer is no. We've worked really hard on coming up with this number. We have 4 people co-sponsoring now and a 5th person asking. I would like to say though, if there is a question about the $150,000, we could have Parks and Bureau of Cultural Affairs Director Tony Phillips speak to that, because he helped us come up with that number as well.
Okay, so my mayor, I'm going back to you as a chair. My question is, if there is going to be a financial impact of $150,000 to commemorate this celebration, why is it not budgeted in the Park and Recreation? Why is it tied to this legislation?
That question I cannot answer for you. Neither either can Mr. Malazi at this point, it seems, from this conversation. Right now, where we stand is we must vote on Mr. Khalid's motion. And if it does fail, then you can make a substitute motion.
And if it doesn't
Mayor,
fail,
I'm going to move the previous question.
But
no, I still have the floor. You can't move the previous question if I have the floor.
Excuse me, Ms. Willis, are you finished?
Yes. So
Okay.
if his motion, no, I was asking Mayor, you the chair, if his motion passes, can I still come back and do a substitute motion, or I can only? My question is, can I?
No, you can do a substitute motion if his motion fails.
So if it doesn't
passes,
fail, yeah, if it doesn't fail, can I still do a substitute motion?
No, I don't think so, Madam Attorney.
No, if his motion is to approve it subject to those amendments and that motion passes, then at that point it would be approved. It would stand approved.
Right.
So who made the second to the amendments? Because I don't understand. I guess I'm confused on why my amendment can't be voted on at this point. Who made a second?
Councilmember Rowell and Councilmember Reeves second Councilmember Khalid's motion.
So is there any way, is Councilmember Rowell and Councilmember Reeves, are you amenable to withdraw your second motion?
The maker of the motion denied it.
Right, but
so we moved on.
The maker of the motion, I mean the amendments. I'm talking about
the maker of the motion denied your request to amend the motion.
Is that right? Can you do that, Attorney Walker? Because I thought when you make an amendment, it had to be voted on.
So point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me, Mr. Khalid. That question was to the attorney, and we'll get back with you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, so the maker of the motion is not required to amend the motion. So if there are other council members, one or more, who would like a different motion, if he rejects amending his motion, then you would need to either vote his motion up or down.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Rao, you in the queue?
Yes, this is a clarifying question. I'd like to hear from our Parks and Recs director that I think Councilman Khalid said he had spoke with him. And then I have a question about obligating the future budget. Being that we're past this event, can we do this, or does this have to be addressed in the approval of our next fiscal year's budget? Because we've already had this celebration.
Mayor, I can answer the second question about the budget.
Okay, let's get the first question answered first. Mr. Tony Phillips there?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mr.
All right.
Mayor, good afternoon. Good morning. In reference to Juneteenth celebrations, we actually budgeted for a Juneteenth celebration in the current FY20 budget. At the beginning of the budget year, we had planned several citywide events. Juneteenth was prominent among those. COVID-19, of course, changed our plans, as it did many other things. And we ultimately did this year's Juneteenth celebration as a virtual celebration this past weekend. Councilman Khalid did contact me in reference to this particular item, and he described that he wanted to create a larger scale event for Juneteenth in commemoration of a potential city holiday. We had discussions about by next year, when Juneteenth comes around, Wolf Creek Amphitheater will be operated by the city at that point. And so conceptually, the discussion was around a concert and festival event that could be 1 to 2 days involving performers, art show, food court, kids area. And so it was a larger scale event to commemorate the city's first Juneteenth holiday. Any events of that nature can be scaled to whatever budget is provided. And so the $150,000 was for the concept that we discussed on yesterday, involving, again, a major concert festival event, but that can be scaled to whatever level the funding is set at by the council.
Follow-up question, Mr. Phillips. How much did we have budgeted for the current year, as well as I do want to hear from the attorney about obligating future budgets.
Madam Attorney?
Yes. Yes, Mayor. So the legal impact of you guys allocating this amount is that it would give instruction to the city manager and finance to give you a proposed budget with it allocated in this manner. Now, it's always going to be subject to you approving the budget after they follow the instruction of this ordinance, because each year annually state law requires you to confirm that this is going to be my budget for this year. So this is basically an allocation in a direction for staff to allocate these funds. But again, it would be subject to you guys not changing that direction during the budget process.
I think her question, so we're next year we'll be having elections and we'll have a new budget. Am I correct?
No, my intent was, we have, again, previous conversations, we have been told that we cannot obligate future budgets. And so I want clarity, because we've been told.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
And so it has nothing to do with the election. I'm just trying to understand, one, where's the source? So we get that it's Parks and Rec. And then I have a follow-up question for Councilman Khalid. The 150,000, is it that is revenue neutral because the department Parks and Rec will be responsible for securing? That's how I understood it. So if that's the case, then I think we've possibly address with the issue, because that was my issue. I think we all want to support this holiday. We just want to make sure we're clear on the financial.
Mr.
Councilman
Khalid,
Khalid, can you answer?
Mr. Khalid. Mr. Khalid.
Yes, can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, so again, we're directing the staff to find corporate sponsors and donors to replace it. We're setting a budget, and then we're directing our staff to find corporate sponsors who can pay for that budget. And we will have a year, 365 days for our staff to find those corporate sponsorships. And we, as I said, I think there is a super majority of people who have agreed on this number. So I would like to move to call the previous question.
Are you finished, Miss Rao? Were you finished? Were you finished, Miss Rao?
Edward, can I
Miss
speak?
Rao, were you finished?
Can I say something, please?
No, you
Point
can't.
of order. Once we call the previous question and
Mr. Khalid, let me run it. Are you finished, Miss Reed? I mean, Miss Rao?
Oh, hell no.
Miss Rao, are you finished? Assuming that she is. Is there a second? There is a second on the move the previous question. Let's vote on that, please. We're voting on the move the previous question.
Point of order.
I can't vote.
You can only call the previous question if it's your turn.
I don't know about that.
Ask the attorney. She opined on that at the last meeting.
Madam Attorney, do you opine on that?
She's on mute.
Because I have moved the previous question.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's correct as Councilwoman Willis stated. If it was Council Member Khalid's turn to speak, then he can make that motion. If it was not his turn to speak, then he cannot.
We got you. Let's move forward. Mr. Baker?
I'd like to make a motion to move the previous question.
I second.
The property moved and second on the previous question. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember
We
Rao.
don't need to. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Councilmember Rao. Councilmember Gums.
Yes.
Councilmember Willis.
No.
Gilliard.
Yes, I am having difficulty. My internet is gone. I'm on my phone.
Okay.
So please, please understand that because I can't maneuver.
Just text me,
I'm
Ms.
on my phone.
Gilliard. Just text me.
Yeah, I did. I
did.
text you to let you know that I was having problems.
I received it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Councilmember Reeves.
Aye.
Khalid.
Yes.
Baker.
Aye.
Let's vote,
Councilmember
please.
Rao, are you there?
I like.
Okay, it passes. Previous question passed.
And this, would you reinstate the previous motion, please?
The previous motion was made by Councilmember Khalid, seconded by Councilmember Rao and Reeves to change it from 250 to 100 with corporate sponsorships and the communication department to do a press release.
Point of order. It was from 250 to 150, not 100.
250 from 250 to 150.
All right. Yes. No more discussion now. All right. Let's vote.
Clarification on the motion. Because
there's no more discussion.
I'm not discussing. I'm asking for clarification on the motion. Changed it. Can you please repeat the motion?
Repeat the motion as it was changed, Madam Clerk.
The motion was to change the amount from 250 to 150 to secure corporate sponsored donations and the communication department to do a press release.
Thank you.
Okay, let's vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Rao.
Yes. Is this for Juneteenth? I'm sorry, I got booted out.
Yes, this is the Juneteenth item. Councilmember Gums.
Yes.
Willis.
Yes.
Gilliard.
Can you repeat it, please?
The motion is to approve the Juneteenth holiday with changing the figure from 250 to 150, securing corporate sponsorship donations, and asking the communication department to do a press release.
Thank you. Yes.
Reeves,
Aye.
Khalid,
Yes.
Baker.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, next item, please.
Next item is number 19, council approval of first reading of amending Appendix G, disbanding committees.
And this is a first read?
This is a first read.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any comment?
Councilmember Gilliard, I think, wants to speak.
Yeah, I have a comment.
Go ahead, Ms. Gilliard.
What I would like to share with everyone, if you notice from all of the comments that came through regarding the finance committee, most of them did come from my district. But if you notice, there was someone from every district, not one district in particular. And I did that for a reason, because unlike a lot of other things, finance touches everybody in a different kind of way. And so I don't want to go into a lot of things that could have and should have happened very differently when we did have the committee. I'm not going to go into those details because I don't want to bring up things and get into a debate and an argument and all of that kind of stuff. But I just think that that it really, really was, it was an experiment in the terms of the community and the council working together. And if it does not survive, and it probably won't, I just think that it would just be awful. And then to get rid of it and to bring some other version of a finance anything, it would just be a real big insult. And so I just wanted to say that.
Okay, I have Mr. Khalid.
So yes, I want to second Councilwoman Gilliard's concerns and the concerns of the 17 people that spoke at public comment today. We are headed into some pretty dire conversations about our budget, and it does look suspect. I want to be clear, I'm not alleging anyone of having ulterior motives, but again, we know that perception is reality for some people. And for us to be talking about making all of these budget cuts and cutting our citizen review board out of that conversation seems a little problematic. Also, the Older Americans Board is on the list. The Senior Gala is one of our most popular programs. And I wonder if there is not money for it, instead of ending that board, which is a very popular program, which is also free, might it not be better to use this same Juneteenth model, this Yeek Fest model, this model that we've had for lots of festivals, where we look for corporate sponsors to replace the money that's been allocated for that Older Americans Board. It's a lovely event. It's a signature event of the city. I would hate to see it go away when we have more than a year to figure out how to save it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Khalid. Councilmember Willis.
First of all, I would like to say none of these boards are going away indefinitely. These boards are going away to, in the meantime, whether or not people realize it, it was misguided and misinformed information put out to the community. It does take staff resources to help us formulate and keep these committees going. If there is money that's being spent, the finance committee did have to take training. It was not free. Every time we meet in person, we're spending money on lunches. We talked about other training. We had a facilitator to come in. We had to pay for his mileage, gas, and fee. So I don't think there is no one targeting any one committee specifically. And I resent that type of communication is being put out. as long as I've been an elected official, we have always strived to be transparent with our finances. We have open gov, we have budget hearings. Mr. Donald did budget workshops that included the community. So there will be still opportunity for residents to engage and get access to any information regarding our finance. We have never withheld any information regarding our finance. So I would appreciate if people put out transparent information. We don't have time to put extra strain on our staff in the midst of these pandemics. We have a budget freeze. We can't hire employees. Our employees are leaving because they feel overwhelmed. We lost a very valuable employee last week. And when I had a conversation with him, he said he felt overwhelmed. So we need to make sure that we are moving in the direction of our city manager, who is paid to manage the day-to-day activities. And we had discussions with him around a lot of these committees. And at this time, this is the time being. It's not personal. It's not trying to hide anything. It's not being not trying to be transparent. I resent that those comments are being thrown around. I am going to reach out to my residents, and if they see how this finance committee was being chaired, they will have a true understanding of why I think at this time we need to dissolve it and bring it back with clear direction. Thank you so much. And I am a transparent council member, and I can assure you that I will make sure you have and get whatever information you desire to have. And the one person who responded was reached out directly by my colleague, which I think was totally inappropriate.
Okay, I'm going to entertain
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Gilliard, be cool. I'm getting to you. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to entertain one more comment, and then we're going to move on. That I don't see nobody in the queue right now. Ms. Gilliard, show me your phone. She wanted to speak.
I was in the queue.
Okay. We're going to have, excuse me, Ms. Gilliard. We're going to let Ms. Gilliard speak. We're going to let Ms. Rouse speak, and then we're going to move on. Go ahead, Gilliard.
I just, what I was not going to do, I really realize now that I have to do it. First of all, less than $1,000 was spent for our training. That was number one. Number two, some of the money came out of my budget. Number three, from the first meeting, very first meeting, we were dealing with titles for people that needed to go away. And all of this is in the minutes, all right? The minutes. We had to deal with that. We had to deal with everything other than actually running a meeting. It got so bad at the meetings, and you can look at the YouTube, the conversation became one of, we're getting rid of the committee. Why should we even have this on the agenda? It was almost impossible to even meet. And then it came up with we have too many committees. So
excuse me, Ms. Gilliard. Excuse me, Ms. Gilliard. Ms. Gilliard, excuse me one second. There is some feedback from somebody. You need to cut the feedback. Please mute your phone. Go ahead, Ms. Gilliard.
It became almost impossible. Then the words in the ordinance that the attorney developed, that was picked apart. Then there was a problem because the audit came before the committee, before it came to the council, anything, and then finally now. And so that's not coming back. That is not coming back. The intent from day one, and I just sat back and watched it play out, was to get rid of the committee. It was obvious. You'd have to be crazy not to see it. I mean, anytime you want to make a big deal out of the word oversight and advice, when it's standard in any finance committee for any city, those words in an ordinance. So I'm very passionate about it because it was ridiculous. And then to sit back and directly talk about me sharing it. It was all I could do to be civil, honestly.
Okay.
It really and truly was. It really became a complete disaster. And then finally, Mr. Mayor, it was, oh, well, we're wasting the time of the citizens that are on this committee. And the citizens on the committee was saying, it looks like the council's got a problem. You guys need to go and deal with that. We're not in it. I mean, it was ridiculous, completely and totally ridiculous. So being an ex-internal auditor, going into this, well, the council and the citizens can work together. We can, do all these wonderful and great things. I'm walking away as an accountant feeling suspicious now because too much negative energy was put into it. And I'm saying to myself, why? This doesn't make sense. And then to talk about an audit committee, and that is part of what finance comes under finance, it just gets worse and worse.
Okay.
So I am really upset because I was insulted.
All right, Ms. Gilliard, thank you. Your time is up. Let me go to Ms. Rao and then we'll move on.
Thank you, Mayor. As one of the co-sponsors on this on this particular ordinance, I want to say it wasn't about any one committee. We looked at a number of committees. When I was approached, out of respect, Ms. Gilliard, I want to be listened to as you had the opportunity to speak. We looked at a number of them. I actually supported, if you go back and check your record on the finance committee, I also supported the city naming committee. And that one was a difficult one, but given the information that we have about where we city with this pandemic, we have to look at a number of things. And I think we all have to be open to figuring out how, one, we continue to engage residents in the budget process. I do think, and I watched both meetings and I was not a part of that committee, I think we do need to figure out something to continue to engage residents without the council member serving on that committee. I will say that. And I did reach out to you to discuss an audit committee. You declined interest, but I do want to work with some members of council to figure out how we continue to make sure our public understands that, at least I know I'm committed to transparency as well, but that we allow residents to engage in the process. And so whatever form that takes, I do think it needs to be independent. It does not need to have city council members on it. And it needs to be an objective way, however, to look at that. We also have Open Gov. I know me and Councilwoman Gums co-sponsored that legislation from the beginning. It was one of the first pieces of legislation we passed in this city to make sure our finances. So I don't want it to seem as if people are not committed to transparency, and this conversation can't be about one committee. We need to look at the whole thing.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk.
The next item on the agenda is the city Chief Financial Officer's May financial report, and then the Chief Financial's report.
Okay, Mr. Velazzi.
Yes, good morning, Mayor and the City Council and everyone. We are going to go through first the May 2020 financial report, then we'll get into budget amendment. We still have got technical problems, so I'll still have the clerk helping me to go through. If we'll have next slide, please. So our 2020 budget for the end of May, we still had a positive ending with $23 million. We should always remember that all the funds that we are talking about is how we started 2020 budget, what we collected before we get into the pandemic. So we still have got some, and we still receive some, but what we receive is not even half to what we are spending. So we are privileged that we are where we are because we started well and we had good corrections at the beginning of the fiscal year. So we ended up end of May with $23 million above the expenditures. And so far, by end of May, we had received our revenues up to $60 million, and our expenses were up to $33 million. Our total revenue, our 100% revenue projected, had received so far 80%. So we are struggling with the balance of 20% because of what has happened. So that's the one we'll be struggling with from now up to end of the year. So 20% is still outstanding out there. And we are running below the projected expenses about 19%, less than what we projected. And most of those reasons is because of the management thinking of freezing some expenses, freezing some positions and filled positions. As you remember, we had only public works, public safety positions that are still filling in, but the rest of the positions that were deemed non-essential are still unfilled. So that's the biggest saving that we have on the expenditure side. And with that, knowing the shortfall of revenues that cannot meet our current expenses, we recommended our 2020 budget of expenses we'll be talking in due course. If we come up with another slide, next. So this is the summary of our revenues and expenses. As you see the summary of our revenues, the top part of it, we budgeted property tax for $31 million. We have received so far 26. We still receive, but the coming in is not as much as. And you see motor vehicle budgeted for $300,000. We have received almost times two, $569,000. Franchise fees, 2.4, we have received $3.1 million. Local option tax, that's sales tax. We budgeted for 25. You see, we have just passed half of it. And we don't expect to too far from there. So you see, we still have got about $10 million that we are going to. So if we are talking about shortfall of revenues, that's one of them. Budgeted for $25 million, we have received only 14. So that's $10 million just there.
Mayor, can you ask him to repeat? Because it was feedback and I didn't hear.
Okay, so I was on franchise fees.
All right, hold on. He's doing it now.
Okay, thank you.
I was on franchise fees. I said we budgeted for $2.4 million. We did very well that we have received so far $3.1 million by end of May. And the sales tax, we budgeted for $25 million. But with what has happened, the remaining out there, still outstanding there is $10 million, which we don't expect we are going to recoup the whole of that because of the reduction that we will see there down the line when we get into details of sales tax. We started receiving about 2.4. Last year, we have received up to 1.5. So it's almost $1 million shortfall in revenue within the past 3 months. And then we have other taxes. Other taxes, we budgeted for $7.2 million, and we received the 7.5. The majority of that is to do with the premium, insurance premiums that we got $2 million above what we budgeted for. Then the IGA, there's a correction on IGA. You'll see them again in details. We had some from Atlanta. We have received much of it. And even the figure that you are going to see is not, we have received our payment in May, in June. So it will reflect in June's balance. So the owing of Atlanta has gone real down because of the payment that we have received. So in total, we have received $60 million in revenue. And if we would go next slide, I'll cover expenses on the next as we go. Overall, the city has received 80% of the total revenues. Taxes are the city's main source of revenue, even though there are some tax, as you have seen in that, I was saying some of the taxes we have received are more way than what we budgeted for, but there are still some, and the sales tax was one of the examples that is still lagging behind. Revenues for various services, such as the municipal court, some of these ones are repetition of we said, but because we still don't have, we'll keep on repeating month by month. But courts, there may be a change because they opened, I think, we opened the courts services, so we'll be seeing some revenues trickling in on the court side of it. Several tax-related revenues have been impacted due to this COVID-19, and the options sales tax is one of them. We have already gone through much of it. So this one I'm just putting into what I have already shown you on the previous slide. If we may have another slide, please. So tax here, wanted to give you a summary of tax. So you may see that tax here, property tax billing, when we have that, there are several denominations of tax. We have current year tax, and we have previous year tax. Then we also have penalty. If you are paying after due date, you get penalty. So you'll see that there we are talking about, we have received $26 million, but here it's showing we have received $29 million. $29 million is in addition to other taxes. It's not only current property tax, but it's with other taxes, previous tax penalties, then they come up to $29 million. And 65% of our revenues are coming into for the property taxes, 65% of that. If we may go, next slide. Summaries of revenues. So here it's showing on the left-hand side how much we budgeted for. In case of the first one is the property tax, we budgeted for $31 million. In May, we have received $672. Year to date, property tax, we have received $26 million. And the year to date revenue on property tax is 44%. And how much we have received it, we are at 83% of our property tax correction, 83%. A motor vehicle still the same, budgeted at 300. In May, we received 55,000. And for the entire fiscal year, we have received 569, and it adds up to 1% of the revenue. So far, we have received 190%. As you see, budgeted at 300, and we have received 569. We may go to the next slide. Still, it's on the revenue side, just showing property tax is the biggest component of our revenues. Then we have other taxes that we have. So on the tax side, $26 million we have received. Sales tax, $25 million budgeted, but we have received only $14 million. It's a repetition of what has been already said, but in different format that you may understand. So this is on the graphical format. Next slide. The first line is to do with general fund, which is the focus of our presentation today. And we budgeted at $75 million. We have received in May $3.3 million. I want you to keep note on that May receipt because it will compare with the May expenses. So you see 3.3 we have received in May, and the year to date of our revenues is $60 million. And you have those other funds where there's a Dutch, that means we have not received anything, there's no movement. But at it all, in May, total revenues in May is $4.5 million. Out of that $4.5 million, 3.3 is for general fund. And our total revenue so far received for all funds is $88 million. If we go for next slide. As of May 31st, average expenditure were 48%. or $36 million of 2020 amended budget. Freezing unfilled non-essential positions, delay filling in essential positions, especially public safety, because they have really helped us, that even though they were told to go ahead and hire some of the hiring, they would still do without that. The filling of those positions has been on the delay side. That has also helped us to save some money. But they are allowed to fill those positions anytime before end of the fiscal year. We have money set aside for them. Expenditure cut of 15% was given across the board, just to make sure that we are operating within our revenues. I mentioned last time, the city manager also mentioned to say, even though we said the 15% across the board, there were some departments that they would not absorb. Either they didn't have enough funds to meet their obligations, and public safety was one of them. Some departments were much smaller that they couldn't. So we had to move money, expenses from those departments that they could do. So we cut more than 15% to cushion those that would not do. If I go to the next slide. So this is the summary of expenses as we did with the revenues. The first column on the left side is the budget that we budgeted for. And then the second one is the May expenses. Then we have year-to-date expenses. And then we have expenditures and the percentage of the expenses for the entire budget. So I'll give an example. The first one, that's the district total for all council people. We have $1.4 million that was budgeted for, and we spent $98 million in the month of May. That's the entire governing body. A year to date is $739,000, which is spent, and they have spent so far 52%. It's 2% of the total budget. Our governing body is 2% of the total budget. At the end, you have 100%, and on the end, on the other side, on the right-hand side, the last one is 48%, meaning that we are 48% of our total expenses so far.
All right.
I have another slide. Our biggest component of expenses are invested in our personnel. As you know, that personnel is the biggest asset of every corporation. So our city is not different from all other municipalities and government communities where we have more expenses in personnel. So we budgeted for $44 million in personnel. We have spent almost half of that. And because some of the money are in the freeze positions that have not yet been filled, positions that have been frozen, and positions that public safety had not yet filled in. So that half may be changing as public safety is filling those positions as we go towards the end of the fiscal year. And operations, we budgeted for $31 million. So far, we have spent $14 million. One may ask as to expenses are so low, but remember, revenues are there. Change is very little, while expenses are growing. In May, you may see like it's $14 million expenditures, but there are obligations that we have already met that are unpaid for. So the number of expenses will be growing. The revenue will almost be where it is. If I have a slide. Personnel is $22 million that we have spent so far. Contractual professional services, we have spent $10 million. Supplies and others, $3 million for a total of $36 million. It's just a repeat of what we just went through, but in a different graph format. Next slide. Summary of our expenses, general fund, we have spent, if you go to the right-hand side, we have spent $36 million out of our budgeted $75 million. And in the month of May, total expenses, that's for now. Then let's see on the expenses on May. Let's focus on May. I told you, keep in mind of how much we have received. If you recall, we received $3.3 million. Now, if you see on the middle section in May 20, on general fund, the first line, you'll see is $7.5 million. So we are receiving $3.3 million, or we received in May 3.3, but we spent $7.35 million, more than times 2 spending, and we receive less than half of what we are spending. So without what we came with, we wouldn't have been spending this 7.5. And I did sympathize with our colleagues that have got their fiscal year ending June 30th. In this shape, still we have got some 2-3 months, maybe things may get better. But for those that have got their fiscal year June 30th, things may not be as good as it may be.
Okay.
We make sure that we limit our money going out, because if we do that, we will run out of what we have so far. So we are preserving what we have so that we can be able to end the fiscal year, but at the same time be able to start our new fiscal year before we get our revenue in taxes.
Okay.
Have another slide.
How many more slides do you have?
There is only one after this, then there will be questions. Everything that is on this slide and the next slide is a summary of what we have already talked about revenues. So I don't really mind going through this one. I want to dedicate time to the questions and comments that you may have. May I have another slide? And another slide. That's where we are now. If you have questions and comments out of where we are, I did want you not to forget about, we received $3.3 million in May, and we spent $7.5 million. But we are still confident we are able to go meet all the obligations, pay all our employees, pay the remaining contracts that we have until end of the fiscal year, unless something very unusual from what we are, we'll make it.
Okay. Thank you very much for a great report. Mr. Khalid, I'm gonna hold you because Mrs. Gilliard had texted me. So then I'll go straight to Ms. Gilliard. Ms. Gilliard? Ms. Gilliard? She can't quite hear me. Mr. Khalid, why don't you go ahead and I'll go back to Ms. Gilliard.
Okay. I've got a couple things. So I don't want to like hog all the time. I'm just going to talk about the first issue, and then hopefully, Mayor, you let me come back and ask these other questions about possible new revenue sources. But I'm actually shocked to hear, we talked a lot about public safety and essential workers. I'm actually shocked to hear that police were not paid on Sunday. I was out there with the police chief, and I didn't hear anything about that from anyone. As a democratic socialist, I believe whenever workers show up and are required to show up, they should be paid for the work that they do. What was unique, and I'm headed somewhere, so if you just allow me, what was unique about this protest, and I want to be clear, this was one of the few, and for those of you all who are not familiar, we had a Father's Day protest on Old National. There was a protest and a rally. It's actually the first time in the history of Old National that we've had a protest like that. And it is also one of the only protests that has happened in the last 30 days in Metro Atlanta that was completely peaceful, not only during the protest, but after the protest. So the police went home around 9 o'clock. I actually stayed in the area until after midnight. And there was no violence, no rioting, no burning, no nothing of any kind. And I think that is because as a city, we created a new model. Protesters usually are in confrontation with the government, but
Mr. Khalid, not to stop you.
So let me say it like,
go ahead. Go ahead.
This is what it has to do with the budget. If we have not budgeted for protests, we need to do that, because this is the first of many protests that have been called for in this area. I am fortunate because I've been open to collaborating with people. They tag me in these protests. There are protests that are being planned in District 3 and District 2. And if police are required to respond to those, they should be paid. And so while I'm amenable to paying for it out of my district budget, I think that we need to talk about, as a city, are we going to pay our police officers when they are notified that a protest is happening and they show up to make sure that it remains peaceful and demonstrate the collaboration that we have in our city with people who want to redress their government with petition grievances?
Okay. Thank you so much. And
I'm sorry. So my question is, for Mr. Donald, were you aware, as the city administrator, as the chief administrator of the city, were you aware that police officers were responding to an event and not being paid?
Yeah, so I've just confirmed that inquiry came in. I was not aware of that, and I've actually just confirmed that is not actually the case. So we have comp time and overtime. Our policy allows for comp time, and those officers were provided compensatory time for their service. And compensatory time, as you are aware, I'm not so sure if the public is aware, compensatory time is payment and benefit. So they're able to use that time as a trade-off for their next or future shifts before a pay period end, which is a regular activity. If they were actually hired by the organizers, then they would be able to receive direct payment as 1099 staff persons. That was not done in this case, and so the city provided compensatory time.
Okay, Mr. Lee. Okay, I will allow you to come back next time.
Thank you.
Mr. Reeves. Mr. Reeves.
Yes, sir. All right, Mr. Donald, I hear what you just allotted to. I attended the roll call on Thursday evening and then Friday morning, again on Friday morning, and then was informed by the officers that, that they were being asked to come in on a day off. And I guess what you just explained in the compensatory time, as the officers who actually had the patroller see it in a different manner. And I'm just going to let that go internally, and the chief handled. I just wanted to make sure that them officers got the cash benefit for the overtime that they had to come in and work, in which they requested. And to my colleagues and my councilman on Old National, that as we go forward, we will talk about stuff like this internally and ahead of time before meetings of this nature, so that we can be on the same page and what the ask was. Yeah. So Councilman Reeves, I think that's a great point. So we should harp on that right now. So to my understanding, there was a request that there be a police presence and just overall city support for the protest. These things have popped up kind of out of the blue without a lot of opportunity to prepare. To ensure that we had police presence, and I'll defer to the chief to give insights on how he delivers that service. But with these new activities, people were provided an opportunity to participate. While overtime might be the preferred option, the city does not have additional overtime budget at this time. I think Mr. Malazzi made it abundantly clear that our budget is in a great deficit from what the projected revenues were, and that we have a shortfall that we are only maintaining because we had such low spending the year before. And even though our spending is trending even less this year, the impacts of COVID-19 have given us a projected deficit. as such, there is no overtime budget, and to both meet the needs and response of the protest, but also provide an opportunity for the officers to receive either a financial or time off benefit, he provided compensatory time. There was no overtime option because the city has no money to pay additional overtime for things that are outside of the budget. So I hope that clears it up, but if it does not, Chief Meadows is still on the line and he can give insights into how he coordinated and organized, as I don't get that deep into his shop and management.
Mr. Donald,
Correct.
Let me add one thing, Chief, before you get there. Mr. Donald, I think that when you and I went to roll call, one of the things at the top of that list for the administration of the police department was overtime.
Absolutely.
And they cautioned the officers that there's a grave decision they're gonna have to make and cutting back on some things, try not to overload people or us in terms of overtime. So I just want to make that clear. Chief, go right ahead.
May I speak before that happens, sir?
Well, let me acknowledge him and then I'll get you back.
Oh.
All right.
Okay.
So when protests come up, and I think you all heard me mention this last night on the town hall, it's really all hands on deck. We don't have the luxury of not responding to what's before us. And we need to make sure that when protests happen, they do it safely, not just for our citizens, but for the protesters as well. And so it was really all hands on deck. When the situation broke in Atlanta, we wound up sending our SWAT unit up there. You all heard me talk about emotional intelligence and making sure that our officers have some decompression time. And so for the other day, we actually utilized our community policing section for that. And so we have discretionary units that we're able to deploy. It just helps if we have adequate time to prepare for these sort of things, so that we kind of plan out the course so that overtime does not become an issue. We could literally reschedule our personnel so that overtime is not that big of an issue, but it's actually having that opportunity to manage that process.
And that's a great point. We didn't really have an opportunity. I learned about it on Thursday. I think, Chief, you learned about it on Wednesday for what was going to happen on Sunday, but we met the challenge. And let me say this while I have the floor, that let me commend the organizers of that event for having a very peaceful gathering, an expression of their concerns and the support that we gave them as a city. I've talked to many of them, including Marcus Coleman and others who were there at the scene, and they were really, really appreciative of that which we gave them. So I want to say to Mr. Khalid and whoever brought the protest to our city, we welcome all protests as long as it's good and in order. And we will continue no matter what district we go through from here on. We want to give the opportunity for people to protest, but we want it to be orderly when they come, and we will support that. Ms. Willis, I got you. Mr. Reed, what did you want to say?
Okay. And then also too, thank you, Mayor Edwards and Mr. Donald for attending the roll call and hearing from the officers, and following your leader did so as well. And I would encourage all to go attend. And so just hearing from them firsthand, and because it was on short notice, and I do know that there's nothing budgeted for the overtime. The question that I was asking about the chief, and because I understood that they wanted the cash benefit for this case, because it was on short notice and it had to be put in there. I agree with Councilman Khalid that it should be going forward into a budget item that everybody can agree and everybody's on the same page. But I asked the chief for this bill, for these officers who work this event, that we, as gentlemen of the Old National Corridor, split that cost from our own budgets for this case. And I'm pledging my 1/3 of that bill out of my budget to the officers, because we do agree with the protest, and it did go off without a hitch, and they did provide the adequate service, and it was a great event because the onlookers, what made it surreal for me was the onlookers that was shedding actual tears as we was marching up down the street, and then even when we got in the plaza, and that we did do something. So But at the same time, I do agree that it was officers who made that sacrifice as well, giving up their day on Father's Day, and just to be compensated for overtime for this case. Now going forward, there, with other things to plan, that'll be fine. So that, with that statement said, that's just where I come from, is about the compensatory for our officers for this event, just for this case right here.
Okay, you all can get with the chief and y'all can work that out. I'm going to, the last comment here is going to be from Ms. Willis.
Yes, thank you, Chief Meadows, and all the officers for everything that you do to keep us safe. My question is around comp time. Oh, I know comp time is time, but at some point, does that equate to money and impact our budget?
Well, yeah, it does impact the budget in terms of lost man hours. But as Mr. Donald stated, in terms of the overtime budget, when you're paying it, at a rate of time and a half, that money can add up pretty quickly. And so, yeah, but it would ultimately have an impact on the budget.
Okay, and my question is, Mayor, I just would like to encourage all everybody that if they know of any protests that is planned or forthcoming in our city, I think that we would be fair and let our police chief know, and let the council person know who governs the district, so that we can plan accordingly. I did see a flyer about one that's supposed to be in my district, but it does not appear that it's going to be legal because, number one, we don't allow weapons in our park. That's against our rules, and our parks are not open. And so I don't know, Chief, I hope that you have researched that and plan accordingly to deal with that. I appreciate everything. I'm in alignment with what everybody is saying around protests. I do welcome them. I think they're instrumental, they're impactful. And the most effective ones are the ones that are peaceful and then also have demands and work with government. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Yes. The next is the city manager's May 2020 report.
Mr. Manager.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I think I've provided a fairly detailed reopening plan. And so I think in lieu of a general report, the overall purpose of this report was to receive any feedback or guidance related to that report that was provided to you a couple of weeks ago. I think the one caveat is that I believe you've seen that the numbers in both Georgia as well as around the world have received significant spikes over the last 5 days, so much so that the normal number in Georgia that we've become accustomed to has doubled. And so we are watching that, and there are parameters within that report, which I believe you've read and seen, that are based on the medical information as well as our safety precautions. And so with that, I would defer to you for any further guidance.
I have Mr. Khalid in the queue. Mr. Khalid.
Sorry. This is actually a follow-up. You were going to let me follow up with this budget question, but I think it's in here as well around our opening up.
Sorry for that.
The first, it's fine. The first question is about our courts. And we were talking about, so it's a two-part question. We were talking about abolishing some citizen committees. We know that it's hard to recoup the fines that are issued by the Code Enforcement Board, but there is actually a financial mechanism when it's done through the courts. So I'm just wondering about that as a revenue source, and what's the update on that opening up? And then my second question is, Councilwoman Gumbs, and I'm sorry, I was trying to send you this information, but there was so much going on, Councilwoman Gumbs. But I did send you an email about it. She worked on this Airbnb ordinance, and it's my understanding that there's still several Airbnbs that haven't been regulated. And I'm just wondering, if that is when we might begin re-permitting for Airbnbs, and if that is also a possible revenue source that we haven't considered for things like the firehouse that we haven't replaced in a while.
So for both of your questions, as they revolve around court opening, court is back open. We had our first virtual court sessions, and they are being scheduled moving forward. I believe Ms. Gaston is on the line and can provide some insights and information into that. As you are correct in relation to the Code Enforcement Board and the recommendations they make that come before the municipal courts. With courts being reopened, the schedule has been included. I think we provided an update at the last meeting. I think the insights that would be pertinent for you today are that the council has made the decision that the Code Enforcement Board remains intact, similar to the way it was at the county. And then after they weigh in and make their decisions, those items are heard by our municipal court. There was a delay because the Superior Court and the state court, who kind of oversee that whole system, basically closed all in-person activities and then left it to the locals to identify new ways to coordinate, thus our move to virtual court as everyone else in the region. Your second question was around the Airbnbs. I think we've provided some information and updates related to that as well, which was also tied to the courts. I think we had 2 cases, maybe it was one, that was in the process to come before them, which I'm not sure of the status or whether it was rectified. But my point is to say that all of those activities, now that the virtual court process is back in place, all of those things will start moving through the process, and any backlogs would begin to be reduced. We will also, even when we reopen fully and people are able to go to court, we will still keep the virtual court options in place because for us, especially with our issues around the facility, will allow us to operate even without the support of some of our other partner municipalities. And so those revenues, as Mr. Malazi alluded to, we expect to increase in future months.
Okay, Mr. Khalid.
That's good.
Okay, Ms. Willis.
Yes, and so, Mr. Donald, is there a point in this agenda you're gonna go over the reopening plan, or you just?
No, ma'am. So I presented it and provided it to the council in full. And so what I am awaiting is guidance from the council on the reopening plan. If you have any questions, I am fully equipped to discuss them and answer any questions. But I followed the guidance of the council in developing the most robust plan as possible and then providing it to you for guidance. And the specific request was to have 2 weeks to review it. And so at the last council meeting, I submitted it. And so today, I am awaiting that direction as directed by the council.
Well, there are just a few questions I have. And you said that was in the email that you sent, you said that the plan didn't, go into a lot of the detail as far, it was like a high level. So my question is, I saw in the plan where you're saying that employees are going to be given masks, gloves, and we're going to have hand sanitizing around it. And so the reports I'm finding around gloves is that gloves can sometimes be more unsanitary than sanitary, because if you're not changing them once you touch someone or touch the pins, you're spreading more germs around the office. Have you given any thought behind that?
Absolutely, we have, and we are fully prepared to combat that. So I think the Purist Hygiene Challenge that you were a part of, I think the mayor took it, and education on hygiene, the use of gloves, masks, and other sanitary activities, as alluded to in the plan, everyone who returns to work will receive insights into those requirements and health suggestions. Mask will be a requirement and distributed from the from the city to all of our staff. At that time, each staff member returning will have to take that our version of the Purest Hygiene Pledge, which says that not only have I received these materials, but I commit to operate in a fashion that is in the best interest of not only my fellow staff members, but also to our citizens. And in doing so, I will have a mask, I will utilize gloves when appropriate, I will follow through on all sanitary measures, and I'll make this commitment again on behalf, and I said on behalf of staff and our citizens, but also on behalf of their individual families. And so that is a part of the overall reopening activities.
Okay, and as a follow-up question, some of the things that I've noticed in other cities and at the county is plastic partitions that have been installed at the customer service desk, such as when you walk in the receptionist desk, and then when you walk up to the desk where people are applying for permits. Are we going to install those partitions to help protect our employees from the community?
Yes, ma'am. When you go through the plan at the beginning, once you get past the economic impact and the key findings and all that good stuff, and you go through that in the opening area, when you get past the city's response and it goes into detail, it talks about putting in a variety of safety measures. Those safety measures do include the partitions. It includes the temperature checks and things of that nature. It also includes the limiting of the amount of people who can enter City Hall at the same time. In addition to that, we will be launching an appointment calendar that is available to the public so that we can limit the amount of traffic into the facility. So people will be able to complete an appointment time, both online and in person, so that they can coordinate the business of the city within social distancing guidelines.
Okay, I saw the gloves and the mask and the Purest Hygiene, but I didn't see anything specific about the plastic partitions. That's why I was asking.
Yes, ma'am, no problem.
As a last follow-up to my question is around reopening of the parks. Are we going to have Mr. Phillips speak to that, or do I need to ask my question around that now?
Oh, you can ask now. I can give you an answer to that. That's also in the reopening plan as well, in our 60-day reopening. Initially, it will be passive parks opening first. So what that means is all of the facilities and green spaces that are available in the cities that would include those parks and trails and other things would be one of the first things to reopen, because we can monitor those activities without putting staff and additional other citizens at risk. It will put you in the mind in the way that the Beltline is currently being used with certain restrictions and support from the city. From then, we would have a phased approach where we're looking at everything from limited small camps all the way to full sports activities. But again, it's phased through that 60-day map that is also included in the plan. So you would start with the reopening of things that do not require staff support, and then it would phase into regular operations as you know it.
And I thank you. I saw the plan. My concern is, I hate that you referenced the Beltline, because the Beltline has always been a bone of contention. People have never social distanced properly, but I hope that we'll do a better job in the city of South Fulton. But my concern is House Representative Deborah Basemore have spoken with Mr. Phillips and me and have been on the news. And one of the categories that's not being talked about that is rising in COVID numbers is the youth, the children. So I am, and I did read the phase and approach, but I have a concern about having any contact sports until we can get past this pandemic. And so I did speak with Mr. Phillips about it, and I know parents are anxious to get their kids back in programs, but if we do have any contact sport, is there any way that our city attorney can draft up a waiver and have parents sign something to say if their kids participate in any contact sport in the city, that the city will not be liable if they contract COVID?
So I think there are a couple of things to consider there. And so I'll attack the waiver portion last. The first thing that I want to highlight is the contact sports and things of that nature are in phase 3 of that plan, which is at the end of the 60 days for consideration. Is also based on the number of cases in both Fulton County and the city of South Fulton, and requires at least 14 days at each phase, at least 14 days of a continuous drop. When you add all of that up, it's basically saying that the same thing that you are insinuating is that COVID-19 would be manageable at the time that we expose our contact sports for youth and adults. And so that is included and baked in there. I think secondly, when you talk about liability, I would always defer to the city attorney on that, but it is our plan and intent that prior to allowing the public into our facilities, we have some form of, I don't know if we can fully call it a waiver, but assertion that people enter and participate at their own risk. Our response from GERMA, which I shared a few months back, when it talked about COVID-19 and liability, we talked about it in response to our essential staff members and first line workers. But the response that we got from them is that COVID-19 is basically a virus that's equally available to everyone on earth. And so the liability that we all face is no greater than any other activity, meaning that when we walk outside of our doors and quite possibly inside of our own homes, we are just as accessible to COVID-19 as when we go to work. So that was their take on it. And I will refresh everyone's memory and circulate how they weighed in on that. I think with that being the case, I'll defer to the city attorney, but I'm not certain that the document that we're looking at producing is actually a waiver as much as it is an acknowledgement. And so, but there is, yes ma'am, there's definitely baked into our implementation plan the use of such a waiver, as well as signage and other things throughout the city that acknowledges that risk.
Miss Willis, if you allow me a minute.
Sure.
Madam Attorney.
Yes, Mayor.
For the record, I would like for you to opine on the waiver of personal liability.
Yeah, absolutely. We already have a waiver that's a standard waiver, and I think it's very timely and appropriate to expand that to specifically address COVID.
But for the record, we can have a waiver for personal liability.
So, Mr. Mayor, it's
let me let her answer it first.
That is correct.
Okay, good. Now go ahead, Ms. Willis.
No, so I was directing my question to you or the attorney. What do we need to do? Do I need to get with you and do some type of legislation to legislate that waiver to include COVID, and to have employees or residents complete a waiver before they I guess sign up or participate in any sports or any physical activity on the premises for the
Okay, Madam Attorney, you want to answer that?
Yeah, you can do legislation, but you can also do, so the city manager can do it independently, and it sounds like he wouldn't have a problem doing it. But if you want to, on the record, instruct him to do it, you can make a motion to saying we instruct the city manager to update the waivers before allowing, the public into park facilities that are not into park facilities, but into organized city-sponsored park activities to sign an updated waiver. But it sounds like he's not going to have a problem doing that anyway. I think we could address it internally, but I mean, you're always free to do whatever legislation you want.
Right.
Okay, I'll take it offline, Mayor. I'll take it offline. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Khalid, back to you. Mr. Khalid.
I'm sorry, you just got to give us a second to unmute. I'm trying to keep my phone muted. First of all, thank you, Councilman Willis. Those are great questions. I had some of those same concerns. I want to circle back. Mr. Donald, you talked about opening passive parks. Certainly, let's get our let's get our waiver situation. Let's get all our I's dotted and our T's crossed. But I would also like to see regular parks opened, not the buildings, not the courts or the facilities, but I have people that park at the gate of Creel Park or Old National Park just to go walking, or they will go to other municipalities like the Atlanta Beltline or Cochrane Mill or a park in Fayetteville. And so some of that density may be because there are just not enough places for people to go walking. So I would love to see parks be open just for people to get out and walk in the morning, especially our seniors. And I've had a lot of requests about that. Is that, I don't know, do I like need to make a motion or something to include walking trails and non-passive parks?
Maybe we're using different language, but that's exactly the park opening that we're discussing.
Okay.
Right,
Because,
right.
okay. I just wanted to be clear because that's not like Creel Park and Old National Park. I don't know that they're necessarily considered passive parks.
When I say passive park, so our full park system is not passive. Passive means that it can be accessed with our staff. That's the technical use, is that they could be accessed without the use of our staff providing a direct in-person service. Okay. So it means that you can go out and walk the track, but you cannot come in and register or receive assistance from a staff member in using the basketball court or the pool or the room with the aerobics room. So it is the passive activities that can be coordinated independently with our citizens.
Thank you. I know people are so excited to hear that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to end this conversation with Councilmember Rao.
First, I want to thank the city manager and all the department heads who prepared a plan. It's a 97-page document. It's very thorough. Things that many of us may not have even thought about or addressed in the plan. So a job well done. The council member has addressed a number of the questions that I also had. And so I just want to say kudos on the job well done.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk.
The next item on the agenda is consent agenda items. Item number 8, council approval of agreement with CSG for payments for financial services. Item number 9, council approval of IGA with City of College Park Fire Rescue Automatic Aid.
I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda items.
I make a motion to approve consent agenda items 10 and 11. Oh, I'm sorry, 8 and 9 for the agenda.
Second.
The properly moved and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those, let's vote, Madam.
Councilmember Rao?
Yes.
Gumbs?
Yes.
Willis?
Yes.
Gilliard?
Yes.
Reeves?
Aye.
Khalid? Councilmember Khalid?
Yes.
Baker?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, next item, please.
Next item is previous agendas. Council's second reading and adoption of amending ordinance Title 15, criminal offenses, providing regulations for the control of weapons discharge.
And these were things we dealt with in our work session. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion on item number 10.
I make a motion to approve the ordinance to address adoption of an unlawful discharge of firearms.
Second.
And properly moved and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Khalid?
Aye.
Reeves?
Aye.
Gilliard?
Yes.
Willis?
Yes.
Gumbs?
Yes.
Rao?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next item, please.
Next item, council's second reading and adoption of amending Title 18, Animal Control, Curb Your Dog and Horse Ordinance.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the adoption of amending Title 18 Animal Control, Curb Your Dog and Horse Ordinance.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote, Madam Clerk.
Ralph,
Yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Willis,
Yes.
Gilliard,
Yes.
Reeves,
Aye.
Khalid,
Aye.
Baker.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next item, ma'am.
Council second reading and adoption of FY20 mid-year budget amendment.
Mayor, I would like to make a amendment to this.
Okay, what's your amendment? Who's the maker? Who is the
This is finance.
oh, this is finance. Okay, you have a question that will resolve into an amendment. Is that what you have?
Well, I would like, yeah, well, I guess my question is, well, I would like to move that we approve this. And my amendment is to reduce the amount of my council budget. And the amendment has to reduce all council budgets by 10,000. I would like to request that we reduce that amount by the expenses that I submitted to finance for COVID expenses.
What?
In other words, you're really talking about a reimbursement of your budget for COVID expenses.
Right, and I submitted a spreadsheet yesterday.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Manager. You want to talk to that?
I do not.
That's correct. Okay. Well, do we get a second on that?
Not yet.
Okay, that
second.
Thank you, Mark.
Second.
I mean,
Okay.
Councilmember Baker.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second. Any discussion?
Yes. Would we just, many of us we've exhausted our budget on PPE, et cetera. So would we just, follow suit as well as far as just letting, from my understanding, the county has these funds. So it would be only right to do what Councilwoman Willis is requesting. What would be the process of us just submitting it through our LSs?
Mayor, can I answer since I'm the maker of the motion?
Go right ahead.
Yes. So Councilmember Baker, what Mr. Malazzi asked us to do yesterday is to submit a spreadsheet of all of our COVID expenses. And then, yes, he will handle getting the reimbursement from the county for the CARES.
I'm clear.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Can I speak?
Go ahead, Ms. Malazzi.
So the deductions that we did was to make the 15% is completely different with what Councilwoman Willis is talking about. Councilwoman Willis, what you already coded as COVID, that one is already covered, whether we have reimbursement from the county or we don't have. That one is already covered with the money that you council appropriated, the 400,000. That's where all will be coded, the COVID will be coded for. So you free up, we are going to free up your money. I think by the end of this month, we are going to give you back everything that was coded COVID-19.
I understand that. That was my motion. And so that was my motion.
Money that is coming from the county is not going to individual council person because you would already have that. That money, we are going to reimburse this COVID-19 that you already appropriated. So it's not going to individual council members. You already have your money from what you already appropriated.
I think I can help you out here, Mr.
Oh yeah, that was confusing. Go ahead.
Right, because
no, I think I got you. What Mr. Malazzi is saying is that the amendment does not need to be an adjustment to the amendment as in it, because as you code your expenses to COVID-19, he is removing them from COVID-19. We have allocated a funding line in the contingency to where all of those COVID-19 expenses will be allocated. And so the amendment is one thing. That is the adjustment. That's the reduction across the board of 15%. But any expenditures that you have made that are COVID-19 related would then be coded appropriately to the contingency, and your budget would be refunded. And it has nothing to do with the funds that Fulton County is allocating. Instead, the funds that Fulton County would be reimbursing us would go back to the general fund. And so they are completely separate activities.
You understand?
And my motion is still the same, Mayor.
Okay, well, let's vote then. Would you restate the motion? Would you restate the motion, please?
To approve the mid-year budget. I'm not sure if I got the wording.
My motion was to approve the mid-year budget, reducing the $10,000 that's being requested to be taken from the council member budget to reduce that amount by the COVID expenses that we have spent.
Okay, let's vote, please.
Councilmember Rao?
Yes.
Gums?
Yes.
Willis?
Yes.
Gilliard?
Yes.
Reeves?
Aye.
Khalid?
Yes.
Baker?
Aye.
Motion passes.
So that passes. Next item, please.
Next item, number 13, council approval of resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement and paperwork related to Fulton County's CARES Act Municipal Reimbursement Program.
I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the authorizing agreement between the city of South Fulton and Fulton County to be reimbursed for CARES expenditures.
Second. Been properly moved and second. Discussion. Hearing none, let's vote, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Khalid? Councilmember Khalid?
Give him a minute. All right.
Reeves?
Aye.
Gilliard?
Yes.
Willis?
Yes.
Gums?
Yes.
Rao?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next item, please.
Next item is number 15, council approval of resolution asking General Assembly to enact hate crime legislation.
I'll entertain a motion.
I make a
Go ahead. I move that we approve for this resolution to be approved by this council to encourage the General Assembly to approve hate crime legislation.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
So does this also, I know that with some of the House bill, especially this particular House bill, is this the one that the NAACP is supporting and asking us for the amended changes?
Yes.
Well, I don't know what the NAACP is doing, but I do know with the Georgia Municipal Association. Not the Georgia Municipal Association. I do know what the Coalition of Elected Officials discussed and asked us to do. And Representative Bodie has asked all cities that he is governing to pass this bill. This is the bill that the South Fulton delegation is pushing for, and this is the bill that they have asked all South Fulton delegation to pass.
So I did hear somebody say yes. Yeah. Mr. Mayor, was that you?
Matt Mayor was, but Madam Attorney.
The Q.
Madam Attorney.
Yes, Mayor.
In writing this bill or resolution, whatever it was, did you consider comments from the NAACP on this issue?
No, I did not. So to answer Councilwoman Gum's question, this resolution mirrors the sentiments
of both,
but we did not, I did not copy NAACP sentiments.
Okay, but it mirrors both.
Correct.
Okay. Oh, is that okay, Ms. Gum?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, Councilmember Rowland will vote.
Oh, I was just gonna say that it did reflect both. And I think some of the concern that I think Councilwoman Gums is speaking to, that the latest update that those protections for law have been removed again. So this ordinance just really speaks to, in general, coming in the spirit of compromise. So I think it addressed the concerns.
Okay, let's vote, please. Will you restate the motion, Madam Clerk?
The motion is to approve a resolution asking General Assembly to enact hate crime legislation.
All right, let's vote, please, Ms. Clerk. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Rao?
Yes.
Gums?
Yes.
Willis?
Yes.
Gilliard?
Yes.
Reeves?
Aye.
Khalid?
Aye.
Baker?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next agenda item, please.
Next agenda item, council approval of resolution denouncing racism and injustice.
I don't think they need much conversation. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve resolution denouncing racism, justice.
Second.
It's been properly moved to second. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote, please.
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Khalid?
Aye.
Reeves?
Aye.
Gilliard?
Yes.
Willis?
I was on mute. Yes.
Gums?
Yes.
Rao?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next item, please.
Next item, council approval of resolution adopting a green building sustainability policy.
I'll entertain a motion, please.
I move that we approve the green building sustainability policy.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Any discussion?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I wasn't in the queue. Do I need to get?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so my question is, who is going to be responsible for bringing this policy? Are we going to hire a third party to do this policy for us? Or are we going to rely on our planning and our community development and planning team?
It will be our community development planning team. And this is consistent with the effort to move towards green certification that the council approved at our last meeting. This is one of the steps moving in that direction, but it would be handled by our staff and there's no fiscal impact.
Thank you, Mayor. I yield.
Okay, let's vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Rao?
Yes.
Gums?
Yes.
Willis?
Yes.
Gilliard?
Yes.
Reeves?
Aye.
Khalid?
Aye.
Baker?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, next item.
Council approval of resolution extending the moratorium banning uses.
I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the moratorium. I make a motion to approve the resolution extending the moratorium.
Second.
Been properly moved to second. Any further discussion?
I have discussion.
Yes. Go right ahead, Mr. Khalid.
I would like to revisit what we spoke about in the beginning, and ask our city attorney what changes would have to be made for two things. One, to not allow more beer and wine licenses in an area, and also to not allow them near daycares or schools, because that facility that we just voted no for is next door to a daycare.
Okay, Madam Attorney.
Yes. So there are distancing restrictions that are already in place by state law.
Right.
So the measurements that were taken should be consistent. So I think it's probably if you think that there may be an error, you guys tabled this, so I would just recommend that CDRA just ensure that these are distance and restriction compliant. And if you do want to put a limitation on the spacing to avoid the oversaturation of certain uses, you can certainly do that through your zoning code, your zoning rewrite.
Well, I'll hold that for now, just for expediency to get that passed. But again, I just the proximity to residential homes and daycares and schools of places that sell liquor where people would stand outside and consume it. I just want to make sure that we include that at some point in our zone.
And I think that's a good point. We're going to get Ms. Willis, and we're going to conclude with Ms. Gilliard.
And thank you for asking that question, Councilmember Khalid. So would this moratorium allow us to legally prohibit these light uses from, and it's not just, you know, liquor stores and gas stations. We have other light uses that we have concerns about in our city. How long will this moratorium last? And will this prohibit, this will allow us to legally light uses within a certain mile distance from being established? Attorney Walker.
And I apologize. Every time I talk, I put the phone back on mute.
That's
so
okay.
It takes me a second. But so this one goes into effect until, or will go into effect if you approve it, until September 30th at 11:59. So that's the duration, and I'd have to look through it to the gas station component. If you have a specific question to it, what is that specific question? And then I'd have to look through the document to see how it speaks to that.
I'm trying to be careful not to just, you know, beat up on gas stations and liquor stores. I know that for all of us, that's one of our major concerns, but, you know, we got vape stores, we got, you know, we got other light uses that we have concerns about. And so those are my questions. Will this allow us to put a moratorium on group homes?
Yes.
You know.
Yes. So this, I don't think you're at substantial risk of this moratorium singling out any particular establishment because it's so broad. There are multiple type establishments that are covered, but through your zoning rewrite, I think the goal is to keep this in place until you can address those limitations in that actual rewrite. So the aim is that whatever you adopt by September will incorporate the issues that precipitated this moratorium having to come into place.
Okay, Ms. Willis.
Yes, thank you. I yield.
Well, Ms. Gilliard, I had said Ms. Gilliard would be the last speaker, Ms. Rao, so you came in after her, so we'll have to conclude with Ms. Gilliard.
There are a number of uses, and I do know that group homes and personal care homes are included in that list. And I also know that in our current zoning and even in the rewrite, it's still a quarter of a mile where you know the distance for a group home and or a personal care home. And the distance where you could have another one on the block is like a half a mile. So the zoning rewrite needs to be the document, I think, that needs to correct that, because we want to make sure that we don't have a lot of them in the city so close to each other. We're going to have some, but that's a real big issue. And it is a big issue with liquor stores, period. And there are some cities where you cannot have more than a liquor store like a mile or two from each other. And that prevents you from having too many of them like we now have in some areas.
Okay. Would you reinstate the motion, Madam Clerk?
The motion was to approve the resolution extending the moratorium.
All right, let's vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Rao?
Yes.
Gums?
Yes.
Willis?
Yes.
Gilliard?
Yes.
Reeves?
Aye.
Khalid?
Aye.
Baker?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next item.
Next item is council approval and first reading to amend Title 14, Environment, Green Builder Community Incentives.
And this is the first reading. Any
This is
discussion?
the first read.
Any discussion? Hearing none, let's go to the next item.
Next item is council approval and first reading of ordinance mandating city employees to take the COVID-19 test.
This is the first read. Any discussion?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
I like this. I like this idea in theory, but I just want to ask first legally: is there any, like, is it Fourth Amendment for a search and seizure? Is there any problem with that, with mandating people to take a test? And then secondly, if people do test positive, what is the follow up?
Madam Clerk,
and I'm sorry. Last thing. Are we testing for antibodies? Are we doing this, like, which test are we doing?
Madam Attorney. Madam Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, when the attorney is asking a legal question, can I please respond to the two other questions?
Yes, you can, Ms. Wilkes.
Thank you.
Yes, Mayor. So you do have sufficient authority legally. I've forwarded links as well as information to the council, and I'll send that to Councilman Khalid just to make sure his concerns are addressed. But the CDC, as well as other federal entities, has said it's within the city's discretion, and they do not believe that it goes outside of individuals of the city's liberties, or not liberties, but the city's ability to regulate by making testing mandatory. So it's more of just a discretional policy. I mean, I know that for example, I know that the city manager has communicated information that I thought was somewhat relevant about, you can test someone and then the next day, they can have COVID. So I don't know about the reliability component of it, but the legality component of it, the federal government has offered substantial support that I think would help you in the event you were sued in any capacity.
Let me ask a question while you're here. Does it comply with all of the HIPAA requirements?
Well, the HIPAA compliance is going to be based on what you do if you determine that someone's positive.
That's correct.
So, I mean, you would have to make sure that if you implement this type testing, that you keep all the results. It shouldn't be a news article the next day, this person tested positive for COVID.
Right.
You would just have to exercise substantial diligence in making sure that you protect the employees' privacy concerns if you do make this mandatory.
So my question is that stated in the ordinance?
So the ordinance, or this document, basically requires the city manager to collaborate with the agencies that would handle this type testing. So it would be a collaborative effort. It would be working with the Department of Health, as well as the State Department of Health, as well as the Fulton County Department of Health, and then just ensuring that all regulatory guidelines that both of those agencies deal with, as well as the city's own HR guidelines, making sure that they're complied with.
Okay, Ms. Willis and Ms. Gumbs, I'm a little bit unnerved with the fact that it doesn't specify the HIPAA guidelines in it. And I think it's very important for us as a city to make sure that we're compliant with HIPAA.
Mayor, this would not be handled any different from what happens now. We have employees taking COVID tests, and their HIPAA guidelines are adhered to. This policy has gone through the HR process. The HR director has weighed in. So this would not be handled any different.
Just a concern.
I understand, but I don't understand the concern, because we have had employees that have taken COVID tests since COVID has come into an existence, and nobody HIPAA rights have been violated. We don't know who has tested positive in the city. We do know that we have had positive cases. We know that we have had people to be quarantined, but their identity has never been revealed. And we have taken the proper precautions via our third-party medical team. And so what this will do is do what other cities and other counties are doing. And what they are doing is that they use the Department of Public Health. They will come in, set up a mini unit, and we can designate a day for employees or days for employees to be tested. And what it will do, once the results are back, the results will go back to the employee. If an employee is tested positive, they will inform HR, and HR will handle it just like they normally do now. So we have a problem with violating HIPAA. So
I agree.
And it's free.
So is there a level of comfort, Mayor, if you want in the ordinance to be amended to have?
I mean, even though I know that those people who do this thing, they conform with HIPAA laws. Yeah, I would like to see it in there, regardless of what the obligation is.
All right, well, we definitely.
Attorney Walker, can you please, this is the first read, so it won't be voted on until the next council.
Right.
Could you please get with the mayor, with our mayor, and find out what language he is looking for to be added to this order so that we can have a level of comfort.
Thank you so much, Ms. Willis.
Yes, will do.
Am I in the queue?
Actually, I still have the floor because one of my questions didn't get answered, and I just have one more question, and that was.
And I already realized that, Clete. I was going to answer. Can you answer?
Yeah. So it was which test is being used, and then you said that the Fulton County Health Department would come in. So I'm assuming they're going to be paying for all the testing.
Go ahead. And so the test that will be used will be the nasal test. That is the most reliable test according to the Fulton County Department of Health. And yes, these testings are free to anyone. And as a matter of fact, they are encouraged. I have had 2 testing sites in the city, and then Welcome Mall will be a testing site tomorrow and Thursday. And it's a simple nasal test. People can drive through, walk up, and they get their results back in 4 to 6 days. And Fulton County Public Health, they have recommended that this is the nasal test at this time. There is an antibody test, but they are not sure if that's even approved by the CDC. But these nasal tests are.
All right. So thank you. That's just. So this is my final comment. I definitely do want to support this. I know that nasal swab test is kind of, I feel like mandating employees to get a nasal swab is, I don't know, I'm just a little, but we have time to talk to our employees and make sure that they're cool with that.
Yeah, and can I provide a response to that, Mayor? Because I understand his concern, and I will be transparent to tell you that I had a nasal test done. The one that they do in the hospital is totally different from what's being done now. If you don't come by Welcome Mall Park, they don't go as deep in the cavity. The one that the Fulton County Department of Health is doing, they're not going as deep. They're not going as deep in the cavity as they do in the hospital.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that legal opinion. Madam Clerk, let's move on.
I was in the queue.
Who is that? No one's in my queue.
Councilwoman Rao.
Councilwoman Rao, go ahead and we'll end it there.
Just a quick question. I know we're scheduled to begin phase being open and beginning July 5th. This question is for attorney. Why couldn't this have been a resolution so that we could be in place prior to the first phase of opening?
So to change this to a resolution.
Right, I'm asking because this is going to be in our code, right? It's I'm assuming COVID won't be here forever, even though it may be an extended period. But our next regular meeting would be after the beginning of the phase opening, and so can this be changed to a resolution so we can adopt it?
You mean right now?
You mean
Yeah.
I deferred whether it should be a resolution or ordinance, Mr. Mayor, to our city attorney. So I mean that's what Councilmember Gums and I did. So it doesn't matter to me. I mean, long as
What is the answer, Madam Attorney?
Can we move on? Can you give me at least 3 minutes to look it over to make sure there's nothing in
Absolutely.
here that?
We can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can do that. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Rao. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Next item is council approval of amended IGA with Union City regarding resurfacing of Hunter Road.
I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the amended IGA with Union City for the repaving of Hunter Road.
Is there a second?
Second.
We properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. Okay, go ahead. Mr. Kuyat.
Frankly, I didn't read it, so I don't know. City manager, what does it entail? What's the long and short of that?
Reimbursement.
Partnering and splitting costs with Union City to pave a road that crosses both jurisdictions.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Gums,
Yeah. Yeah.
Willis,
I'm sorry. Yes.
Gilliard,
Definitely.
Reeves,
Aye.
Khalid,
Yes.
Baker.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Is there any motion to go into executive session? Because if there is, I would like to take about a 10-minute break before we go into executive session.
Man,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I think we good today.
No, I think
Hold up. Let me let the city manager, go ahead.
Mayor, I did want to highlight one thing about the COVID testing. I think we're prepared to, we work with Fulton County and working with Dick Anderson. We will have, along with the staggered reopening, he has committed to support us in staggered testing or just one-off testing. I would ask that you give us the authority to coordinate that, because I think it could be difficult if we send everybody at one time to get testing. It would it might be difficult to coordinate some of the HIPAA requirements and things like that. I also noticed in the ordinance, I guess you haven't decided if it's an ordinance or resolution.
No, not yet.
One area that we do need some insight and support on is there were comments providing that we specifically define discipline and the parameters around the testing. I think those comments went into the legislative process, but I didn't see them there. But if we make it mandatory, we want to know, we want some guidance related to the discipline around folks who do not comply, because that, I can foresee that being a challenge, and I would like for that authority to come from the council to define what that would be. We do have our human resources director who made those suggestions on the Zoom call, and it would probably be good to hear from her on the rationale around including such language in the legislation.
So, Mayor, do you mind if we allow Ms. Henderson to speak on that, and then also give us a recommendation on what the discipline should be, if there should be any? And as far as coordinating when employees take the COVID test, I fully expect that's what you would do, Mr. Donald. I mean, we just made a policy. How you make it happen, you know, it's the onus would be on you.
Yeah, no issues. I just wanted to just point that out and just kind of have it on the record, because you know, when we don't talk about these things in detail, sometimes it gets a little lost, and I didn't want to leave that hanging. So,
Ms. Henderson on the call. Mr. Donald?
Yeah, she is.
Okay.
I think
Can you
you
hear
got to
me?
give her a second to unmute.
Yeah, we hear you.
I just want the council to know that you do have the privilege of talking about discipline in executive session. I know the public policy behind that is that when you talk about discipline and you talk candidly, that can sometimes lower employee morale.
Right.
I agree.
So you may want to consider talking in
I
private.
think you're absolutely right. We need to talk about this at another arena. But
So I
not here.
move, Mayor, can we go in executive session just for personnel, just to discuss?
I have Mr. Khalid to speak, and then we'll interchange.
Well, what about Ms. Henderson speaking?
She
We'll
just
do
said,
that in personnel, I think.
he said it would be a personnel item. It was
Oh, do you
suggested.
want us all to go in the back? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well,
Mr.
it sounds like my comments can wait until then, but I would like to just revisit a bio break if we could start executive session at 1 o'clock and just give us 5 minutes.
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, let's at least have a 5-minute break.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll be back at 1 o'clock.
So is that a motion?
I move that we recess until 1 p.m.
Go ahead
And then return to executive session?
Yes, so we don't have to do it all again yet.
Right.
Second.
Okay, Poppy moves the second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute recess and come back to executive session.
I move that we reconvene 6/23/2020 regular council meeting.
Second.
Poppy moves the second. In discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Councilmember
I think that was enough. Aye.
Yes.
Downs,
Yes.
Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard is gone. Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Khalid, Baker.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I'm a little bit confused. Before we deal with the issues of executive session, the last thing on our regular agenda was 22. Do we need to close the executive session or deal right into that?
You had already finished all the items. You need to go with whatever is in executive session.
Okay, let's do this. Let me give a motion to
I move that
I
we
close the executive session, but I want to make sure that we have the well, go ahead. Let's make a motion to close the executive session.
You just did.
We already did that.
You've already did that.
Go ahead, then, Miss Willis.
I move that we approve mandatory COVID test ordinance subject to changing the form to a resolution accepting changes provided following the executive session to the clerk.
Second.
Probably move to second. Discussion. Go ahead.
I just have to say, I understand that as legislators, we're trying to do everything that we can to figure out what our new normal is going to be, given that we're dealing with the COVID crisis. However, I just find it difficult to stand in affirmation with a piece of legislation that may not be ultimately effective when it comes to the paper that is written on. When you have a situation where our employees, if we mandate them to be tested one time and they go to the Quickie Mart for lunch, can be reaffected, like based off the based off the bare minimum that we know about COVID, you could become reinfected or infected after your test. So it's almost cosmetic. So that's why I can't stand behind this ordinance, this resolution.
Okay, let's
I have discussions.
I'm in the queue.
Hold it. Let me say this here, Madam Attorney.
Yes, Mayor.
Don't we have to be very careful about what we're saying now and what went on in executive session? Would you agree?
Yes, I would not disclose any comments that were made by anyone during executive session.
Anybody?
Well, one of the reasons why we went into executive session to discuss an item so that it would not have any adverse effect on us and our employees in public.
Yes, I think what the mayor is saying is if in your discussion, if you could still maintain caution in saying something that might be unnecessarily offensive to the employees,
right, or
something that just would defeat the purpose of having executive session discussion.
I can't think I was clear that, correct? Madam Attorney?
Councilman Baker did not disclose anything from executive session. I think the mayor's just asking you.
I didn't say he did.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear. I didn't, I want to make sure I'm not violating or
No,
it's
you're
not
all right.
inferred that. Thank you, sir.
No. All right, someone else was on. I got Mr. Willis up here.
Councilman Khalid, I can go after Ms. Willis.
Ms. Willis?
And so Councilmember Gums and I put a lot of thought into this legislation. We have studied what other municipalities are doing, even what other county governments are doing. And there are several county governments and several municipalities who are doing this. And there is nothing cosmetic about this legislation. This legislation is to ensure that when we open and when our employees return back to work, they are returning to a safe and healthy environment. Yes, there is a chance when they go home or when they go to the gas station, they could be reinfected. And we have measures in place to help mitigate those reinfections. But what is encouraged by Fulton County Public Health Department, and which is encouraged by the CDC, is that all individuals be tested. And so this is an attempt for us to do our part as policymakers and to ensure that we have employees returning back to a healthy environment and they're not coming into our facilities or any of our facilities in a that may be positive or asymptomatic. Thank you.
Next we have Councilmember Khalid and then Ms. Councilwoman Rao, which we will in discussion and vote after Councilwoman Rao.
I have been tested twice for COVID-19. I encourage everyone to be tested. So I want to go on record saying I do encourage every employee and resident in the city of South Fulton to be tested. However, I also want to go on record for saying that I am opposed to anybody being punished for not doing mandatory testing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Khalid. And Ms. Rao, you're speaking, then we're gonna vote.
I do think as policymakers, we juggle trying to do our best to make sure we protect the public and our employees. And so I appreciate the comments that Councilman Baker said. I don't want people to have a false sense, but I do think we have to at least take a step to protect the public and our employees. But I don't want people to have a false sense. Ongoing testing will be required.
Okay, hearing that, let's vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Rao.
Yes.
Councilmember Gums.
Yes.
Councilmember Willis. Councilmember Willis.
Councilmember Willis.
I'm sorry, my phone was on mute. Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid.
Nay.
Councilmember Baker.
Abstain.
The motion passes.
Hearing no other business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none.
I have discussion. Happy
Happy
Juneteenth, Father's Day to everyone. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, let's vote.
Rao.
Yes.
Gums.
Yes.
Willis.
Yes.
Reeves.
Aye.
Khalid.
Aye.
Baker.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.